Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, Chapter 4, the Hamsa Guhya Prayers, Text 13. Anta Deheshu Bhutanam Atmaste Hare Ishvara Sarvam Tadistyam Ishtadram Sarvam Tadisyam Ikshadram Evam Vasyas Toshito Hiso Anta Deheshu Bhutanam Atmaste Hare Ishvara Sarvam Tadisyam Ikshadvam Evam Vastoshito Hyasau Anta Deheshu Bhutanam Atmaste Hare Ishvara Sarvam Tadisyam Ikshadvam Evam Vastoshito Hyasau. Vaishnavis, Anta Deheshu, within the bodies, in the cores of the hearts, Bhutanam, of all living entities, Atma, the Supersoul, Aste, resides, Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara, the Lord or Director, Sarvam, all, Tadishnyam, his place of residence, Ikshadvam, try to see, Evam, in this way, Va, with you, Toshita, satisfied, He, indeed. So, that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated as the Supersoul within the cores of the hearts of all living entities, whether moving or non-moving, including men, birds, animals, trees, and indeed all living entities. Therefore, you should consider every body a residence or temple of the Lord. By such vision, You will satisfy the Lord. You should not angrily kill these living entities in the forms of trees. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita and confirmed by all the Vedic scriptures, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati. The Supersoul is situated within everyone's heart. Therefore, since everyone's body is the residence of the Supreme Lord, one should not destroy the body because of unnecessary envy. That will dissatisfy the Supersoul. Soma told the Prachetas that because they had tried to satisfy the Supersoul, now they should not displease him. Om Jnana-Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The anger of the Prachetas is a very interesting phenomenon. After all, they had performed such austerities, living in the ocean, and the whole purpose of their austerities was that they please the Supreme Personality of Godhead and become qualified to carry out his order. Their father also took up the lifestyle of wanting to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead completely, and therefore he left home. Prachinabharja left home even before his sons had returned from their austerities. That may seem quite irresponsible, but the king left behind advisors for his sons, and therefore he knew that the situation was suitable for his departure. In other words, there is sufficient guidance available for his dependents. And this guidance is something that we'll be stressing today. When the Prachetas emerged from the water, as you've heard in preceding classes, what they saw filled them with anger. They saw that the trees had covered the earth. In other words, there was a planetary crisis. Why then did the Prachetas become so angry that they were about to finish off all the trees by their mystic power, generating fire and wind? Why did they do that? Aren't they advanced devotees, pure devotees, who have been instructed directly by Lord Shiva, by Narada Muni? What's happening here? This is a subject that we'll focus on today also. The anger of the Prachetas. The Acharyas point out that their anger was not ordinary. They were angry because they saw the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for how the earth should be functioning. That order was not being followed. There was no room for human beings on the planet. This role of human beings on the earth planet is often misunderstood. Sometimes even persons who mean well for the environment, ecologists, environmentalists, they object to human beings being given any special status. They call this phenomenon speciesism. Just like you have racism, genderism, there's speciesism, in which you consider one species to be more valuable than another, when actually all species should have equal emphasis in terms of planetary affairs. Certainly, as this verse says, the devotee recognizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everyone's heart, whether moving or non-moving, including men, birds, animals, trees, and indeed all living entities. At the same time, we recognize that human beings have a special mission. They have a special mandate, as Prahlad Maharaj states in the 7th canto. Durlabham manasam janma tarapya dhruvam artadam. Even though this human body is a dhruva, temporary, it still has artha. It has value in that komara acharet pragyo dharman bhagavatanya. From the very beginning of a human life, you have that opportunity, you have that potential opportunity to focus on understanding Bhagavad Dharma. Furthermore, considering the rarity of having a human body, this is a point that Prabhupada would drive into our skulls endlessly. Having a human body is a rare event. So we don't accept this idea of speciesism that, look, let's be fully environmental, let's be fully ecological. All species have equal weight, they have all equal importance. Yes, we say that all living entities are praja. They are all citizens of the state and should be given protection. At the same time, without exploiting other creatures, human beings have a special mandate, a special prerogative. The Prachetas recognize that. The earth is covered with trees. This is not how the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants life to go on this planet. Therefore, their anger was not mundane. They generated fire and wind with their mystic power. Actually, Srila Prabhupada points out that the real purpose of austerities certainly is not to generate mystic power. The real purpose or outcome of austerity is forgiveness. You have the capacity to forgive. That's something we often don't think of. You may think austerities will make us more tolerant, more able to endure the weather changes, endure inconveniences. But think about it. The most important outcome of austerity is the ability to forgive. So this is what the Prachetas will be reminded about. So now that we've tried to understand the anger of the Prachetas, let's try to understand this planetary crisis that they saw. This planetary crisis meant that there was an imbalance, a severe imbalance in the functioning of the Earth planet, just as we have today. We should see the way the Prachetas responded and note their footprints. They didn't take it as an ordinary situation. Oh, the trees have covered the earth, so what? They took it that there is a severe problem. And they wanted to do something about it because they recognize, as we heard yesterday, the whole system of human civilization is about protection. In a real human civilization, you have various systems of protection that interact and enfold with everyone at various levels of their life, from parents to the government to protecting this one, protecting that one. Everyone is embedded in various nested layers of protection. The Prachetas, understanding that, saw that there was a severe imbalance. There was not proper space for human beings. But their anger, it seemed, was getting out of hand. How could they, as pure devotees, lose control of their senses? But you see, just as with Dhruva Maharaj, at the critical point, by divine arrangement, counselors appeared, guides appeared to caution, okay, enough is enough. This is why Krishna has Arjuna declare in Bhagavad Gita, Kontiya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. My devotee will never be vanquished. The devotee is protected from sinful activity. The pure devotee is protected from sinful activity because he's always surrounded by the graces and guidance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Parampara. Just as the Prachetas, Soma came and said, okay, enough is enough. The Prachetas had the good graces of Lord Shiva. They had the good graces of Narada Muni. Their life is one of wealth in guidance. And that's a point we'd like to stress today, that bhakti is opulent. The real riches of bhakti are mostly about guidance. The more that we, as individual devotees, are embedded in a guidance culture, the more wealthy our life is. And you can see that wealth in regard to the Prachetas. They're responding to the situation. They've done an environmental scan emerging from the ocean, from the water. It's a huge lake, more like an ocean, but actually a lake. They saw the havoc on the earth planet, and they wanted to do something about it. But even though they are such advanced devotees, they're acting within parampara. And you'll see that when Soma deals with them. He's saying, you've pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You've done good. Don't go any further and ruin your spiritual good fortune. That's the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that at this critical moment, such guidance is available. So we want to arrange our life so we have access to that kind of guidance at every step. Then we're extremely wealthy. We spoke about the planetary crisis that the Prachetas found. And certainly the Earth today is in a planetary crisis. Human beings are living as if they're on at least 1 1/3 or 1 1/2 planet Earths. It's like you have 1 crore of rupees and you keep spending money as if you have 1.5 crore of rupees. At some point, the problem is going to catch up with you. And this is what's happening now. The resources are not available to support the global lifestyles when you take the Earth's population as a whole. The facility for absorbing the wastes of human civilization aren't adequate enough. And as it's often pointed out, if everyone on the planet Earth, if all human beings on the planet Earth lived a lifestyle like in the first world countries, North America, Europe, if everyone lived like that on the whole planet, you would need 5 planet Earths. So this is a planetary crisis, just as the Prachetas found. Just consider how brilliant human civilization is. Soma is stopping the Prachetas because he said, if you destroy all the trees, how are living entities going to subsist? There's so many living entities who thrive upon the fruits and flowers produced by the trees. You'll cause, in other words, a great ecological imbalance, which will also affect human beings. So Soma is imparting ecological wisdom. He's showing the environmental concerns of Srimad Bhagavatam. You'll destroy the balance of species. This is not a new consideration. It's there in Srimad Bhagavatam. Just consider one example of the foolishness of a so-called advanced human society. Let's talk about India. In India, there are about 8 nuclear power plants, providing the number 4 source of energy for India. So you say, oh, no problem. Okay. Nuclear power plants are everywhere, harmless. But the nuclear power plants produce waste. And those wastes can take, in order to become non-harmful to living entities, those wastes can take hundreds of thousands of years. So you're saying, well, why would our brilliant technologists and scientists, why would they do such a thing? Shockingly, one mentality is that while we're creating this mess, we're generating nuclear waste that will take, some say, hundreds of thousands of years to become non-volatile, non-injurious. While we're doing that, meanwhile, science will come up with some solution. So first we make the waste, and then later we come up with the solution, because we're human beings. We're sure to come up with a solution. Consider Finland, for example. It's become the first country in the world that is trying to make a permanent solution for nuclear waste from its reactors. And remember, nuclear power is completely tied up with nuclear weapons. It's all in the same basket. So Finland came up with a brilliant solution. They're actually dealing with the problem as they see it. Because all over the world, even the USA, even Western Europe, they have what is called temporary solutions for storing nuclear waste while they're trying to figure out the lasting solution. And every time they try to find a place that's going to be a permanent dump for nuclear waste, the people around who live in the area, they protest. It happens in the USA too, in Nevada. In Finland, they came to an agreement. The people trust the government there. The government found an island in the Baltic off the shore of Finland, and they dug huge tunnels going deep into the earth, and that's going to be where they're going to store their nuclear waste, and in that way show the example of how to lessen the planetary crisis. So then the question came up, how do we mark the site as dangerous? What kind of signs do we put on the island? Because it's going to take tens and hundreds of thousands of years for the nuclear waste to become non-dangerous. Will people be speaking English then? Will they be speaking Finnish then? What to do? Just see, as Prahlad Maharaj says, the solution is more problematic than the problem. How do we mark the site as dangerous? So even though it's an island off the coast of Finland, we don't want 10,000 years from now, 100,000 years from now, we don't want persons obviously meddling with this nuclear dump because they'll be finished. But just consider 10,000 years, 100,000 years. Even the pyramids are said to have been built 4,500 years ago. Who was speaking English 4,500 years ago? Who was speaking Finnish? So how do you know what is going to be like 10,000, 100,000 years from now? So you can't put up any signs. Oh, well, maybe we can't write any language because you don't know what language people will be speaking 100,000 years from now. A warning, this will kill you. Why don't we put some symbols that you shouldn't go to this place? But then they thought, the way human beings are, they must have consulted some psychologists. The way human beings are, if you put a danger sign there, a symbol of danger, that will ignite their curiosity. They'll want to go there anyway. They'll think maybe you've got some gold hidden there or something. So what was the solution? The solution was don't do anything. And that will make the nuclear waste disposal site inconspicuous. You just don't mark it at all. And that way you won't capture the curiosity of human beings 100,000 years from now that they're approaching a most dangerous area. So this is the brilliance that you're dealing with. And we said that the nuclear power issue is completely tied up with nuclear weapons. I pointed out before there are 16,000 nuclear weapons in the world. India has them. Pakistan has them. I pointed out how the USA in order to protect democracy and freedom, has embarked on a 30-year program to upgrade the nuclear arsenal at cost, which when I said it in my report 2 years ago, the cost is $1 trillion. You can't imagine $1 trillion. Now they've admitted the cost will be $1.3 trillion. Oh, what's another third of $1 trillion? And what is the end result of that program? Nuclear scientists have pointed out that the government is telling the people this spending of money, $1.3 trillion, will make the nuclear arsenal safer and more reliable. The actual result is it will increase the killing power threefold. So this is civilization? Is this not a planetary crisis? It's hard for us to understand how all this destructiveness is connected to material desire. Our natural tendency is to think material desire is one thing, anger and destructiveness is another thing. But Bhagavad Gita pushes them all together. When you have material desire, you must have anger, you must have wrath. And what is an economy? An economy is lust on an organized scale. Brilliant statement by Srila Prabhupada. What you call economic development is simply organized lust. Organized lust leads to organized anger. And what is organized anger? War. So you might think, well, if there's some localized regional nuclear conflict, let's say between India and Pakistan, that will be unfortunate for this part of the world, but it will not affect the rest of the world. Even a regional nuclear conflict can affect the planet on a global scale. We're living with environmental degradation. We're living with the potential for nuclear destruction, and yet we call this a human civilization. Just think how the potatoes would react knowing all these things. They couldn't tolerate it that the earth is covered with trees, leaving no space for human beings. So again, the anger of the potatoes was based on their seeing that the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is being neglected. They saw huge imbalances, and this is what we're seeing today. Huge imbalances which are preventing human beings from achieving their full potential. Yet the potatoes aren't simply concerned with human beings, as Soma is explaining to them. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart. All creatures, whether moving or non-moving, men, birds, animals, trees, indeed all living entities. In 2012, there was a historic conference at Cambridge University. And the outcome of that conference is what is called the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness. At that time, name-brand scientists signed a declaration saying that animals have consciousness. It's time to recognize that animals possess the same neural substrates, the same biological basis that gives rise to consciousness in human beings, supposedly. In other words, it's all a material production. That same material capacity for producing consciousness in human beings exists in animals, and it's time to recognize that, and it's time to tell the public. So this is considered a great step forward. Then you might wonder, because for every academic conference, there's always a banquet after signing the Cambridge Declaration, which so many of these neuroscientists did. You wonder, what did they have then for the banquet? to acknowledge that all living entities are carrying the Supreme Personality of Godhead allows you to control your anger. Anger is there in the living entity to use or abuse because anger is there in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But that anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Satchidananda. That's why, especially in this month of Kartik, we're focusing on an incident that was generated from anger as well as extreme protectionism. Let's explore the anger of Damodar, just as we've explored the anger of the Prachetas, and we've talked about the utterly destructive lust that's manifest as anger in the form of nuclear weaponry and environmental destruction. But that anger has the most sublime origin, Janmada Yasyataha. So we know the situation. Krishna is sleeping. It's in the morning during this Kartik month. He wakes up and he's hungry. Mother Yashoda is churning yogurt into butter. Everyone knows the scene, but how can we ever reach the end of our contemplation of this Leela? He approaches her and stops her from churning milk by grabbing the churning rod. He does that to give her pleasure. The whole Leela is generated from Krishna's desire to tighten his bond with his devotee. The acharyas point out that Krishna is thinking, when I ate dirt, my mother just scolded me. Now I want to do something that produces even more affection. I want her to bind me up. I want to become subservient to her love. So that's what Krishna is thinking as the Damodar Leela is launched. He's holding on to the churning rod, and Mother Yashoda is appreciating so much how clever this is. And she stops her churning to feed Krishna on her lap. Then we come to the key anger flashpoint. Just like in the world today, there's so many flashpoints that could turn into conflict, nuclear conflict. Similarly, in the Leelas, there are flashpoints. Milk on the stove is boiling over. This is a key point. Mother Yashoda puts Krishna down and goes to tend the milk. What is Krishna's response? He becomes angry. He bites his lips. Have you ever been that angry that you bite your lip? And his eyes fill with tears. He's feeling that I have not been fully satisfied drinking my mother's milk. And she's not only stopped feeding me, but she's left me alone. Because she has milk on the stove especially meant for Krishna. She's concerned with her extreme protectionism, which is symptomatic of her Vatsalya Prem, her pure parental love of Krishna. She has a concern that Krishna is always going to others' houses and stealing butter. Is there something wrong with the milk products in my house? So therefore, she wouldn't even allow her maidservants to prepare the milk products. She was going to do it herself and take milk, as you all know, from special cows that only ate special grasses. So everything is 100% intense meditation on Krishna's pleasure. Yet Krishna's getting angry. He's feeling neglected. He wasn't finished feeding. He's left alone now. But what is Mother Yashoda thinking? This is a flashpoint that preoccupies our meditation. What is she thinking? What is she doing? Jiva Goswami points out she's thinking that there's real wealth on the stove. Milk is the real wealth. That sounds quite odd to us, doesn't it? Milk is the real wealth. Milk comes from the shop. But she said no. She's thinking milk is the real wealth of Vrindavan. My child doesn't know what is real wealth. But everything I have is meant for his pleasure. Lord Brahma points this out in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. In Vrindavan, all the residents, whatever they have, their families, their children, their animals, everything is 100% meant for Krishna's pleasure. So certainly, Mother Yashoda was simply thinking 100% about Krishna's benefit. She's giving Krishna milk by breastfeeding him, and then there's milk on the stove. So she's going from milk to milk, but somehow or other, Krishna chooses to become angry. The intensity of her affection is not lost by putting Krishna down and going to tend the milk on the stove. But Krishna seizes the opportunity to increase her affection even more. So what does he do? We all know he breaks the pot that is the basis of the yogurt being churned into butter. He breaks it very skillfully with a small stone and then scoops out some butter and goes into another room. He's provoking his mother. He's provoking a situation in which he'll demonstrate he's coming under the control of his mother's love. She comes back. You all know what happens. She sees the broken butter pot. She smiles to herself. How clever is my boy. He's so skillfully broken the butter pot with a small stone. She follows the butter-smeared footprints on the floor. This is transcendental detective work in Vrindavan. Seeing Krishna's butter-smeared footprints. She doesn't apprehend him immediately. She tries to sneak up on Krishna. She knows he's in the other rooms because of sounds coming from ankle bells and pots being moved around. She tries to catch Krishna in the act. Krishna has already left the room. He's standing on an upside-down mortar. He's distributing milk products to the monkeys, looking this way and that way. Now it's time for artificial terror in Vrindavan. Mother Yashoda is tiptoeing through the room. Even the crows are afraid. They leave the room very quickly. The pastime seems to be filled with anger, fear, and the fear, even you could say Krishna is terrified because what's going to happen is Mother Yashoda is approaching him with a stick in her hand. Krishna has never seen this before. His mother coming at him with a stick in her hand. Normally that means the parent is very angry. But actually what's going on is the situation is saturated with maximum affection. The acharyas point out that internally Krishna knows that. He knows my mother has simply 100% affection for me. But he's provoking the situation. He's acting in this situation to increase her love even more. You know this pastime, but we want to focus today on the anger and how Krishna seems to be terrified. Seeing his mother approaching him with a stick, he jumps down and begins to run, just to discuss his mother chasing him and catching him. That is inconceivable in of itself. But we want to focus today on what happens when she catches him. She grabs his one hand, and in her other hand, she has a stick. And as we already pointed out, this stick is really, well, in English we would say it's blowing Krishna's mind. His mother with a stick in her hand? She's got him by one hand and the stick in the other hand, and Krishna knows exactly what to do. It's time to put on such a show of being terrified so that his mother will put down the stick. The acharyas point out that Krishna's even pleading with her, put down the stick, put down the stick. I won't do it. I won't do missions anymore. Just put the stick down. And as we sing every evening, Rudantam Mahor Nature, Yugmam Rajantam, Karam Boja Yugmena Satanka Nature. He's shaking. One hand is held by Mother Yashoda, so Krishna with his other hand, with the back of his other hand, he's wiping the tears from his eyes. He's actually hoping, why doesn't my mother wipe away my tears? But she's going to scold him. The eye mascara is running down his face. Put your stick down. Put the stick down. And Mother Yashoda is telling him, you monkey lover, you pot breaker, if you're so afraid of my stick, then why do you engage in such mischief? I won't do it again. I won't do it again. Put the stick down. This is terror in Vrindavan. Underneath it all is simply pure affection. The question is, how real are Krishna's tears? We've talked about his anger, that his mother put him down, stopped feeding him. Those of you who are parents, you would immediately think, Mother Yashoda had some options, especially ladies know. She could have kept Krishna in her arm while going to the stove and tending to the milk that's boiling over. Why didn't she do that? Why did she have to put Krishna down? Couldn't she just keep feeding Krishna, holding him to her, and then go to the stove all at once? Any of you ever think about that? But she didn't do that because she had to quickly get to the stove. And she was coming right back. It was just an instant. But Krishna sees that opportunity to become angry. And now the outcome of his anger is that he's done mischief. He's broken butter pots. He's distributed milk products to the monkeys. And now he's apprehended by Mother Yashoda. Her chasing of Krishna was based on complete affection. Her capturing Krishna was all complete affection. This is anger in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm being neglected. I haven't had my fill. But he's Om Purnam. How is it that he feels unsatisfied? A characteristic of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, pointed out by Kaviraj Goswami and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, is Suraja Lakshmi. Krishna has unlimited desires, and he has the unlimited capability of satisfying all of his unlimited desires independently. So why is he so upset that his mother put him down? Why biting his lips with anger? Why the tears in his eyes? And then we have to discuss, were the tears in his eyes false or were they real? And one important meditation point is that normally, for maximum outcome of a temper tantrum, there should be someone to witness that. But Krishna, fully displaying immaturity, the bliss of being an infant, bit his lip and cried in anger even though no one was watching. This is very captivating in terms of juvenile behavior. He was not even waiting to make sure someone was watching. He cried and became angry even though no one was around, showing how unlimitedly beautifully immature he was. What about Mother Yashoda? Is she angry? No, everything she does is 100% meant as a display of affection. But she's thinking, if I don't discipline my child, how will my child grow up properly? That's ultimately why she put the stick down. She saw he's getting too terrified. This terror in Vrindavan is too much. If I continue to threaten him in this way, my child could grow up psychologically damaged. Therefore, she said, I'll put the stick down, but I still have to protect him. This is her, again, extreme protectionism. I have to do something because he's so restless. Who knows? If I turn my back, he may race out into the forest. Therefore, I have to bind him. I have to bind the person that we all know. She doesn't think like that, but we all know she's going to bind the person. She's going to get a rope around the person who has no beginning or end. She's going to try to put a rope around the person who has no inside or outside. She's going to try to put a rope around someone who transcends all three phases of time. But, as Bhagavatam points out, she doesn't care to know about Krishna's power, his all-pervasiveness. All she knows is, he's my son. I have to do the best for his protection, even if sometimes I have to pretend that I'm angry. And Krishna always knew, of course, she's not angry, she's exchanging affection with me. So we have discussed today anger in Goloka Vrindavan. We've discussed anger in the Prachetas. We've discussed the planetary crisis. What will our response be? We should consider that the world needs a wisdom culture. This is the prime contribution of Srila Prabhupada's society, to present to the world a wisdom culture during an extraordinary planetary crisis. How we live so calmly amidst such a crisis. Future generations will be astonished when they think back about that. How it is that we take it so casually. Oh, we're living as if we have 1.5 planet Earth. So what? Oh, nuclear weapons. So what? Oh, the nuclear waste from nuclear power plants. Oh, we're getting electricity. There's some benefit. There's a pervasive sense of ignorance. Another result of living in a sense gratificatory culture. Our powers of introspection, our powers of analysis have become so dull. Notice, the Prachetas had Soma, the Prachetas had Lord Shiva, the Prachetas had Narada Muni. They were rich in guidance. Similarly, we want our society of devotees to be rich in guidance, because it's natural that living in this world as a spirit soul, there'll be paradoxes, there'll be contradictions, there'll be perplexities. And just as the Prachetas are guided, we also want guidance. We want to surround ourselves with sources of guidance so that our mission of the human form of life will come out successful. Stop here and ask any questions, comments.
I got a question.
Yes, Maharaj.
You religionists,
you always create this false dynamic. The fact of the matter is, we have solved so many problems. We'll solve the nuclear waste. We'll get through global warming. We've cured this disease. We've cured that disease. People are living longer. Higher standard of life is coming all over the planet. And you're just defeatist. You're just trying to scare us into some religious, paranoid mindset and diminishing the potential of humankind. I'm tired of hearing it.
What we should really be tired of, we speaking as human beings as a whole, what we should really be tired of is the havoc caused to the globe, to the planet, and to our own life because of uncontrolled mind and senses. What species destroys its own habitat? This was the point made to the Prachetas. If you kill all the trees, you're hurting yourself. So why is it that you can always point out to so many so-called advancements, whether antibiotics or nuclear power, and there's always a problem sooner or later down the road? Now we know that having a material body is a problem to begin with, because a material body has a beginning and end. But if we forget the purpose of that human body, we simply end up creating this problem, which will be solved in that way, which will create that problem, which will be solved in that way, which will create that problem. It goes on. And we waste our whole human form of life creating problems and solving them instead of dealing with the real problem, which, as Srila Prabhupada told us so many times, the real problem is you have this human form of life. You must become self-realized. How are you going to solve that? So we protest. Okay, you can say that we are creating problems, but we're solving them too. Even if that is true, which it's not, you're wasting your human form of life. That is our ultimate criticism. You are not fulfilling the mandate of your human body. Even if you say you're solving the problems you create, we'll give you that, even though it's not true. Even if you say that, still, what about your human body? What is the purpose of your having a human body? This is our major disagreement with you. All right, you created things like antibiotics, which are now causing problems because the bacteria is becoming immune to them. Well, we'll solve that by doing something else. Let's say you do that, and we'll overlook that you're just creating more problems by that solution. But what about the challenge of your having a human body? This is the basis of our dissatisfaction with material civilization. They're wasting their human form of life. Same old thing that Prabhupada would say again and again and again. Anything else?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you for your wonderful class. Maharaj, earlier in the class, you mentioned a very striking point. For me personally, you said, most important outcome of austerity is the ability to forgive. Could you kindly elaborate on that, Maharaj, please?
Haven't we noticed it's very difficult to forgive? When you've been wronged, some perceived injustice, we become very attached to carrying that wound. It's something that's ours, my hurt, my pain, which you have caused. It takes great power to forgive. And so, therefore, the Bhagavatam purports about the Prachetas are pointing out that for a devotee, forgiveness is the real outcome of austerity, not development of mystic powers, being able to generate fire and wind from your mouth. So yes, it's surprising, and often we would never think of it in that way. We think by performing austerities, I'll be able to tolerate heat, I'll be able to tolerate cold, I'll be able to not overeat. But by performing austerities, I'll be better able to forgive? That potential power of forgiveness is the natural outcome of Vaishnava austerities. Whereas austerities for the development of mystic powers simply make your heart hard. Vaishnava austerities are meant to soften the heart for chanting Hare Krishna. The softer the heart is, the more we are able to call out to Krishna with love. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya himself says, more tolerant than the tree, more humble than the blade of grass. Then you can forgive. By being able to forgive, there are no lumps in the heart which prevent us from chanting Hare Krishna with maximum devotion. So a Vaishnava is always careful about the texture of the heart. Are there lumps in my heart forming? And certainly if we're not able to forgive, there'll be stones in the heart. And when there's stones in the heart, the chanting of Hare Krishna is interfered with, and that's the last thing that a devotee wants. We want to have a lifestyle in which our hearts become softer, like butter. We want our hearts to ultimately reach the point where they're melting with attraction for Krishna. And how can we do that if we maintain grievances to the extent that we have these stones in our heart? So I appreciated very much the Bhagavatam's instruction that for a Vaishnava, the real outcome of austerity is the ability to forgive. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.